Welcome, everybody. This is the recap of episodes 2 and 3 of The Wheel of Prime. We have gone at length already, 6 episodes or 6 parts, YouTube videos on our channel, going into this show in great detail with special guest reviewers, diving in minute by minute, moment by moment, trying to find all of the crap in the giant crap mine that is Wheel of Prime. This is a recap to kind of look a little bit more holistically, look at what the episode's accomplished from the show at a high level point of view, as well as at least starting off to try and go through anything we might have missed. Now, to that extent, we're not going to be showing any video. We've created some slides that we'll go through, which, at least on my recollection, is filled with things that I could see upon rewatching the rewatch, which got me pretty drunk. What we maybe didn't touch on or maybe warranted some further elaboration. Anyways, you all know me. Let me toss it quickly to Pips and Alex and ask what you're drinking, if you're drinking, and I say we move on from there.
Yep, I'm drinking Redbreast Irish whiskey, and I'm emotionally preparing myself for what we're about to go through.
Excellent. Alex?
I've got an Exile Brewing Company, Ruthie Golden Lager, the pride of Des Moines, Iowa.
I was just in Des Moines a couple weeks ago.
I've never been. Is there anything there to be proud of?
The Ruthie Gold Lager.
What's funny is that I think I actually had some Ruthie Gold Lager while I was there.
Sounds like the thing to imbibe in Des Moines,
Yeah,
Iowa.
I think Ruthie is the name of the brewery, right?
No, it's Exile
Or,
Brewing Company is the brewery.
okay,
Ruthie is the beer name.
yeah, I'm
Wait,
pretty sure I had Ruthie as well as a couple of other ones there from the local
oh, thank
brewery.
God. Thank God. I think you said Ruthie because for the first couple of times there, I thought it was something else.
Nope.
Okay.
Dane's more familiar with the thing he was thinking of.
Not really. I watched The Hangover once. Okay. So starting off, there are going to be long stretches when we go through these slides that skip over whole parts of the episodes, and that's largely because I think we beat those up to death. So I didn't include anything um, that I think we covered quite well. That said, we do have a chat open. We are getting some comments from people who are on our Discord feeding us things that, oh, you skipped this, oh, you skipped maybe, or maybe they want points. So I'll be monitoring the chat. Alex, you'll be controlling the slideshow. And Pips, you're doing all the wonderful recording and fixing all of our terrible misstatements in post, like you always do. I really appreciate every single time you've dubbed over flaming whenever I started using inappropriate expletives.
So not once. Good.
Okay. Um,
That's too high
but I
effort,
want,
Dane.
yeah, true enough. And I take you to task for putting in too much effort into these things, so maybe I'll stop. However, this is the White Cloaks encampment scene, and I remember Alex saying, I think offline, that there was a heck of a lot more in this scene that we actually didn't really discuss as far as cinema sins. Now, in this opening, all I'm highlighting here, and we did beat this up, is that it looks like 9 tents and there's no carts. There's nothing to suggest any type of logistics. There's probably not enough horses or people. While we can appreciate that they did use practical effects and they have kind of a long shot with people being scheduled or at least coordinated in their walking paths, etc., rather than doing multiple shorter cuts, this does seem like a pretty anemic White Cloak camp. But I want to throw it over to you, Alex, if you've got anything to add, or should we blow by these first couple of slides and just say we totally covered this White Cloaks encampment scene and beat it to death with the bloody fingerprint and everything?
Yeah, we went over this one pretty good. What I find so interesting about this one is, um, this demonstrates that this show does understand at least somewhat the importance of establishing characters. That they're very, they do a decent job of establishing, sort of what Valda is about, at least as far as what the show considers him to be about.
And by that you mean cartoon supervillain.
Yes, they've established him as a cartoon supervillain, which, okay, if you're gonna do that, fine, he can be a cartoon supervillain. But why didn't they take the same characterization steps with any of our other characters? I don't understand that. This is just poor writing and direction. I don't understand what the philosophy was here.
So you made it in some of our other conversations. You brought up some stuff about like the like role of sort of a pilot or the role of kind of a prologue in establishing kind of characters. And I think that's maybe relevant here because I think this is one of the few sort of characters that actually followed this where like the sort of cold open or the prologue for the episode is like you said the character establishing, right? And then we sort of see that play out a little bit as this episode and then later in the season goes on. um, what do you think of the other ones that we've seen so far? So in the conversation about why they didn't establish some of the other characters, this is episode 2, right? Episode 1 obviously had nothing to do with establishing characters, even though you'd think episode 1 would be the most important one to establish characters in, right?
Yeah, so like traditionally, if you're doing this, what you do is, you do your prologue scene, and then if it's a world-oriented prologue, it isn't like a flashback to somebody's childhood, some event that like, defines who they are. Um, if you do the world-oriented prologue, your first scene should be, a character establishing prologue of your main character. And if you think back on that first episode, the first scene after the prologue is Egwene getting thrown in the river. A scene that, first of all, doesn't really tell us anything about Egwene's character. Um, and then, second of all the characters that need to be established, why was it Egwene? And I know the answer to that is because the writer of that episode's favorite character is Egwene, but it's just a failure to
It's the
you know
showrunner's favorite character.
yeah, it's a failure to follow the rules, and as a result of the failure to follow the rules, Rand is about as well done as a baked potato that's been in a microwave for 30 seconds. It severely hamstrings the show.
So this opening, which is a prologue of the second episode, you could kind of make an argument. All right, here you're establishing the antagonist, but it's the White Cloaks. It's not
Yes.
the main antagonist of the series.
So that's what I was getting to is that if we were going to apply kind of what Alex has said about the purpose of sort of a prologue and look
Yeah.
at the cold open
And
as a prologue, you'd think
Alex,
that
can you flip ahead a
Eridol,
slide? If you flip ahead a slide, we get it on Valda,
yeah,
which is I think more. There we go.
I just feel like the prologue for this should have been Eridol, right? Like that would have been super interesting. They could have done as much lore breaking stuff as they want to because we really know nothing about Eridol or very little about it. That would have been way more interesting if we'd seen the fall of Eridol, and then go into Shadow Logo.
Well, even if they did the appropriate prologue, like from the books in the first episode, where you actually establish who the villain is,
Yeah.
then this one about White Cloaks, it wouldn't be that bad
Mm-hmm.
to do it about White Cloaks. But the execution of this is just, it's god awful. They come off as completely overpowered, able to take out Aes Sedai,
Very
chop
true.
their hands off, and
It
whatnot.
does
Like it's
contribute to the really the
the
very
the power levels in this whole
yes,
series are just completely
yeah.
nonsensical, and but we beat that to death. Um, but I know in this particular shot, Alex, we talked about the the plastic wine pitcher and what looks like Brita filters at the back, and a couple other issues. And you mentioned, I think, that there were some other technical things, but if we don't want to bore people to death with that, or if we covered it enough, I think maybe we can move on to the next slide. And we're not fully out of this prologue yet because I found another thing to raise about the witch burning, but
While we go to the next slide, what were the White Cloaks doing in the books prior to them sort of capturing Perrin and Egwene and all that stuff, right? So I know they have to they have the whole
Alex,
conversation about leaving.
you skipped back. You went back to
Yeah.
Valda here.
I know they have the whole conversation about leaving Perrin and Egwene and all that kind of stuff because they're trying to get to Tar Valon, right? Um, but what were they doing before? Because I think what you said about the logistics and the size of the camp, like it really makes no sense in terms of them having any sort of a mission that you can imagine that the White Cloaks would be doing in Andor.
Yeah, well, they're often a part of Andor that hasn't seen the Queen's Guards in generations. And while there is a governor in Baerlon, and there is obviously some affiliation with the crown because Baerlon is it's a mining hub, it's an important economic center, at
Mm-hmm.
least for the west of the country. Um, the the crown of Andor is not strong enough to basically repulse them out from where they are. But it's more that they just get introduced as kind of being a facet of life once you get outside of the two rivers. That these are white cloaks and this is what they do. So there isn't a real explanation as to why Jeffrey Bornhold has a legion or a significant sizable
Yeah, I
force
thought there was an explanation of why they
that
were
far
north
west.
of the river and why they ran into Perrin. But either way, okay, we can move on.
They once they're out of the west and they're going east to where the Queen's Guard's writ and Morgase's writ runs a little bit stronger, they probably wanted to avoid that, and they could just as easily cross country over the Caroline Grass than use the roads. So that seems to kind of be the argument. The other one being a white cloak is not going to turn down the chance to rest or whatever in a steading. So they probably were aware of that too.
Yeah, and I
Anyways,
mean, when you take into account the White Cloaks in the first book were basically um, almost, I don't know, just there to sort of cause trouble for Morghese because they view Morghese as sort of um, an ally to the Aes Sedai. So they're just sort of running around in Andor, sort of causing problems wherever
Yeah.
they can. And that's, eh,
yeah, of the rulers of the world, other than maybe the Borderlands, who wouldn't put up with white cloaks any day of the week, Andor is then the most Aes Sedai friendly because they have that long tradition of sending daughter heir to train with the Aes Sedai and first prince of the sword to train with the warders. And that comes up again in Camelin. But yeah,
Yeah.
of the countries, Andor would probably be the least white cloak friendly after the Borderlands, in my estimation.
Well, my
Anyway,
apologies on the tangent.
okay. On this slide in particular, I thought it was somewhat established that, at least later in this episode, that Aes Sedai always have a traveling companion so that they could kind of heal each other, which seems to be completely missing in this scene because they're only burning one of them. Uh, but I always thought the traveling companion stuff was a bit of nonsense because it's not actually how it works in the books at all. However, she's a yellow, she's not a red. She should have a warder. Where did that guy go? Maybe he died already, but she shouldn't even be burning at the stake to begin with. She could channel that guy's head off. So all kinds of stupid, but
Yeah, this.
we beat this up, so we
Yeah,
can keep going.
I guess the decision to make her a yellow is one that I find interesting.
I thought the same
Um,
thing.
Because she
yeah,
can
because I mean,
heal.
in the books, yeah, in the books, the yellows are the healers. So if anybody was going to have an issue with an Aes Sedai, I feel like the yellow would be the last one that anybody would have an issue with. So I
But
mean,
that's not how it goes in history. Anybody who tries to practice some type of witchcraft medicine or witch doctor thing always gets suspicion when, let's say, maybe they fail
So I
or they
didn't.
don't do something well enough. But
Yeah, I didn't think that it
I just
was
don't see the
weird from
yellows as
that
kind of being
perspective.
out in the world that much, right? The
yeah,
yellows aren't
which
the
is
ones
the
traveling
other.
places.
Yeah,
It'd
so
be
I
the
didn't
greens
think
and
it
the blues and the
was.
reds.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't think it was weird from that perspective. I think that to the point where you're talking about traveling companions and warders and stuff like that. So the only ones that we ever really see kind of traveling along on their own seem to be blues. The majority of the other ones do seem to have kind of traveling companions, unless they're attached to some sort of a monarch or something like that. And I
Yeah, like
thought that it
the
was strange just to have one of the first Aes Sedai that we see and have like bad things happening to her. Was I mean, I suppose maybe you have to pick a color, and maybe there was no meaning or message behind it. But this just seemed to be like some intentionality behind like making them even more evil. Like this would be like burning a doctor at the stake or something like that, right? And
burn a nurse as opposed to so Osimoto's suggesting like gray would make more sense, right? mediator, negotiator Aes Sedai who's out on a mission and traveling between capitals or something. Like she
Yep.
could get intercepted and get killed, but no one cares if you burn a politician to death, right?
Exactly.
All right. Maybe we can move on from here. I think there's a bit of a jump in the next slide. Yeah, so now we're getting into Shatter Logoth having a wall,
Yep, because
and
Trollocs are only afraid of deep water, right? That's the only
but
thing they're afraid
but
of.
but walls won't stop Trollocs, and this was immediately contradicted in the same frickin' episode. So this was just me kind of having a little bit of fun with the subtitles again. Although I think my next point on the next slide is a little bit. I don't think we beat this up enough when we get into what Taren Ferry actually is.
Yeah,
The
I thought this scene was so funny because it was just like this slide just sort of emphasizes just the complete lack of sort of like tactical or logistical thought that goes into this sort of thing. You know, um, a character raises like a valid question, and yeah, one of the few times a character does raise a valid question, and they just go like, walls won't stop Trollocs. They might as well have just said like, look, the script says we don't go to a wall, so like
Hey,
we're
I just want you guys to know that you guys are actually just being overly critical and nitpicky here. This is clearly a well thought out foreshadowing for episode 8.
and this is straight up a conversation we had already. I'm sorry. So the wall specifically, but again, they're trying to establish that Taren Ferry is a town off screen, right? It's
Mhm.
off on the side. That's what's called Taren Ferry. It has a wall. It's no good if we go there because a wall's not going to stop Trollocs. So let's get on the Taren Ferry because the only thing Trollocs fear is deep water. Um, so is Master Hightower by himself, far enough away from Taren Ferry, the walled city? He runs the Taren Ferry, or are there multiple Taren Ferries? How many ferries are there? None
At
of that
least
gets established,
at least one
but
more because Nynaeve gets across somehow.
I mean, I think we've
maybe.
already established that it's exactly 15 feet across, so anybody could swim it. But
Okay.
It's just, and there are other things that are kind of mentioned, like apparently Moraine knows that Taren Ferry got burned to the ground because that's what she tells the White Cloaks, that the city. There's no real way that she would be able to know that. But anyways, all kind of stupid. I think
oh,
just at a high level, a town that's far enough away. Would you call that Taren Ferry when clearly this is the ferry and the ferries are here? This is Master Hightower's hut. So
yeah,
uh,
the decision to not have the ferry be in a um, sort of near a population like it was sort of in the books was irritating.
yeah, it
the
makes no
next
sense.
slide. Now I wonder if we can take anything that the subtitles say as canon, like even dogs barking, because the riders of Fade. What the hell is this?
So, was this actually a line of dialogue that was spoken aloud, or is this like the subtitles didn't match the speech?
So I don't know if the speech actually said like the riders a Fade, the riders of Fade.
Hmm.
So either way, whoever's doing the subtitles, good job. The riders of Fate.
It's not like it's a
But
$100
again,
million show.
exactly. It's not like anyone proofread anything in this, right?
Hmm.
Subtitles included.
Yeah.
Anyway, next one.
Small dogs barking.
uh, I wanted to call this out because I think this is the best insight that we had in this episode, and it goes to Alex, and it's basically you have the ferry cut loose in the middle of the river. It's rotated all of 35 degrees, and Master Hightower already knows what's coming. And the only way he can get that panicky is because he is seeing the weaves that we see being woven. And the only real way to explain this, right? Because men can't see Sidar weaves and women can't see Sidene weaves. Moreover, you have to be able to channel. So quite obviously, Master Hightower is a female Forsaken that has been recycled into an idiot.
This is just reminding me how stupid this scene was. Like, look at the massive amount of Trolloc torches on the other side. What person would ever be like, I need to go back to that side?
Well, maybe
uh,
Hightower is counting on the massive army of Taren Ferry, the walled fortified city, just a little bit off to the left of our screen there,
oh
coming
man,
out in force and shooting bows and arrows against these Trollocs who
I'm
don't
sure.
have similar weapons.
I'm sure. Which actually, yeah, it's. I think we talked a lot about this scene in our rewatch, but
Yeah, I just wanted to hang a lantern on it.
I guess my
All right.
question is if the Dark One has this many Trollocs that he can dedicate to attacking, um, you know, Emmons Field, why isn't he just conquered Camelin by now?
that was
Like,
actually the thing I was going to bring up when I was talking about the number of torches, and then I was like, you know what? We don't need to re go into all this. Is that in the books? It sort of makes sense how they're able to escape Emmons Field because they only sent in like maybe one fist of Trollocs because they thought like it's some sleepy villagers. They don't even know what's happening. We'll just come in, we'll massacre this little village, kill all the people, and get out. And they only start really committing troops after they've already escaped, moved from Barillon on. They're going towards Whitebridge, and you can sense like that's Ishamael getting desperate, where he's sending fists and fists of Trollocs through the ways, knowing that tons of them are getting massacred because
Could be.
he's trying to stop them, right?
Anyways, next slide is, I think, one of the first things that I found that we didn't discuss, which is the scene where Moraine is removing the fatigue from the horses. So she does this in the books, but then they continue to ride for like the rest of the night. She does this when they camp, and then they basically go to sleep for 12 hours.
Well, that's something that we have discussed. I don't know if we mentioned this line specifically. This show has a massive problem with pacing. Like it can't seem to figure out if we are fleeing a threat that's right behind us and are like, breakneck speed just trying to get out, trying to run, or if we're just on like a little vacation stroll. And this scene, a lot of the traveling scenes, the general like lack of any sort of building tension all comes down to the fact that like every episode and then even within the episode, like we're seeing in this episode, there's no consistent sense of like tempo or pacing.
Or urgency. But
Yes.
this one specifically just bugs me because Moraine is wounded. She's wounded in the show. She's not wounded in the books. She's exhausted in the books, but she's
They also can't
expending her
figure out how
energy.
wounded she is. That
Yeah,
changes scene to scene too.
but but she's expending her energy to remove the fatigue from said horses when they're just nestling down to have a nice nap. So it doesn't seem like it's needed. When she removes the fatigue from the horses, it's kind of at the midway point of a full midnight ride where they're galloping the whole dang way.
Mm-hmm.
And now she does remove, I think, fatigue from the traveling party before they nestle down at this campsite, but she doesn't do that here. But anyway, I thought this was a break, right? Anybody who's kind of paying attention would be saying, okay, Moraine's not actually going to be doing or expending her magic on horses at this point, especially not when we're going to spend the next 20 minutes of showtime in the same campsite. So
They did
it's
spend a
terrible.
freaking ridiculous amount of time in that campsite.
yeah, and you're touching on an issue that just sticks out to me so much about this is and Pips, you talked about it, the failure to express urgency.
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about like, okay, we need to stop for a break here, you know, we need a line from land saying, we need to stop and give the horses, a minute to rest and drink, or they're going to keel over. You
Mm-hmm.
know, or you have to stop, at midnight when it's dark out and say, um, we have to stop now, or the horses are going to turn an ankle, and we're dead. Um, Stopping at high noon like this is ridiculous. And there also needs to be, they need to look like they're riding harder.
Yeah,
This is just
none of
sort
them
of an
seem tired. The horses don't really seem tired. The riders don't really seem tired. Like if you're galloping a horse for a long distance, like that horse is going to be slicked with sweat, and you're going to be drenched in sweat. Like riding a horse is actually that's physically exerting. Anyone who's done it.
yeah, it's not quite a wall sit, but it's bad. And the Lord of the Rings did this fantastically well when they needed to show tired horses. You're right. They were slicked. They were breathing hard,
Yes.
and they weren't laying down as we've seen here. But
Look at this
And
horse's
and
face. It's
Trip is
completely
raising a good
dry.
point in the chat. Trip is raising a good point in the chat. Had they wanted to, they probably could have done that whole scene with Bella, where she didn't require the rest or require the magical regeneration, because she wasn't tired in the books, and we all know why. But you could preserve the mystery because, okay,
Yes.
Bella was Egwene's horse.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Egwene was the one who channeled
And
Bella. Like that was Moraine's original assumption, anyways.
it would have actually
Um,
contributed to the mystery.
the who is the dragon mystery, but neither here nor there. I think she's removing fatigue from the horses at precisely the wrong time in the story, and it raises other issues about pacing, sense of urgency, etc. But we can move on from this because
Yeah.
we still got a lot of slides to go through. Although I think we can go through the next couple very, very quick. Yes, you did kill the ferryman, Moraine. You're a murderess. Let's go through.
We agreed that it was felony murder, right? She was committing
Felony
a
murder.
felony, and in the
And it
commission
caused
of
someone's death. So
yeah.
manslaughter gets upgraded. He did not waste his own life on a foolish cause. That was the writer's wasting his life. It makes absolutely no sense for Hightower to want to do that. We beat this to death. I think everyone's in complete agreement. This is a
What
low
does she
point.
even think the foolish cause was? Like, it's not a cause to want to go like get his son.
Well, it's so foolish because he would have died because there was 300 Trollocs on the other side of the river, and everyone goes, "Yeah," which means it made no sense for him to want to dive in there in the first place.
Yeah.
Therefore, this is the writers that wasted his life
I'm just saying that
because
even the
no one would
line.
act this way.
I'm just saying even the dialogue there is so clunky and just
But
weird.
I mean,
his
it was
cause
so
is the only thing that isn't foolish. His decision, the way that he attempted to complete this cause was idiotic. But you're right, the cause itself was benevolent.
It was so stupid. It was so just utterly world break. It took you out of all the immersion because no one in any universe acts this way. Uh, and then instead of just ignoring that they wrote something stupid, they went on and they had a scene where the characters talked about the stupid scene from before. Like, I know I mentioned shit Tesseract in the last video, but this is getting there too. Like, this is multiple layers of shit. Anyways, let's go on to the next one. All right. This is one that's kind of bugged me because in the background, and this is benefit of doing a rewatch with knowing how all the other future episodes go and people beating this up and claims that are made later on. This is not something that you will pick up on when you're going through it on a first watch because they haven't nuked the lore yet, as they do in later episodes, where it becomes clear that Moraine had no idea that Nynaeve could channel, or that channelers can't sense the ability or the strength levels in each other, which is what's needed for Moraine not to be a complete and utter liar in front of the hall of the tower.
Yeah.
Now my question is, how the hell does she know that Egwene can channel or has a spark? I know why. Like this is a part they lift from the books, but
poorly.
They nuke other parts of the books, and they're not consistent about what they take and what they contradict. And
well, they're consistent in that they take things that have Egwene and Moraine in them, and they leave things that don't.
Actually, was this ever explained in the book why Moraine didn't grab Nynaeve immediately and take her to the White Tower if Nynaeve is as strong as everybody says she is?
She was on a mission.
So Nynaeve She was
Nynaeve
on
is
mission,
too
but
old, and
Nynaeve was too old.
yeah,
So it was already kind of okay. Now I know, like Moraine felt an affinity for Nynaeve kind of almost immediately. Could sense her ability, was probably surprised by it, but her mission was Rand, or
yeah.
a male who didn't fit and was the right age.
It's the same reason she wasn't going to take Egwene either.
Gotcha. So this is
Until Egwene wanted to come along, and then she got convinced to bring Nynaeve along largely because of Min's visions in Berlon,
Yeah.
that the lightning sparks or whatever they grew. So even the Gleeman
Well,
was involved, and when Nynaeve came, the sparks or whatever got bigger. So she's a part of it too.
and
Um,
Nynaeve refused to not go.
yeah, and then kind of as the plot progressed on, it was, well, maybe there's a place for you in the White Tower, and then it was really, we don't usually take women who are in their early 20s. I think Nynaeve's 24 or 23 or 24 at this point, but her
Mm.
potential is beyond anything that they've seen since the Age of Legends, really. So
I gotcha. I guess that's kind of my question is, I, and you explained it perfectly, but my thinking was always like, um, hey, if this is some Phantom Menace, Anakin Skywalker shit, and Nynaeve really is all that in a bag of chips, like, you know, either either take a break from the mission for a minute or send a message back to the White Tower and say, hey, come pick this girl up. But if the argument
well,
is, they just
and they
weren't the
kind of
right age,
did,
then
right?
that's
Because it was Moraine's information about the two rivers, Egwene and Nynaeve, but
That brings
she
Varen
probably
and
sensed the
Alana.
ability. Right, Varen and Alana go over, but that was largely because I bet your ass Moraine sensed more than just the ability in these two. Um, and I think that gets further established when Moraine is discussing how channeling works to Nynaeve and cites examples of what could happen. And Nynaeve's got in her head how the story is somewhat familiar, that there are people who are, wisdom apprentices who did die suddenly of onset sickness that no one could explain. So everything that Moraine was basically saying resonated with Nynaeve. But neither here nor there. The problem with this line right here is Moraine would have no idea that Egwene had the spark in her, based on what the show establishes about Aes Sedai ability to sense channeling in others. Which, again, they nuke part of the lore, but they don't nuke all of it. Ridiculous.
All right, so break this down, Dane. There's a couple. There's a couple that we need to flip through here
Yeah.
and tell us.
Okay.
Tell us the.
I went into a rabbit hole on this one, so bear with me. But we
Uh,
had the party is slowly traveling with no sense of urgency. Land comes back and says that there's a party of white cloaks coming up, and it looks like they meet the white cloaks just at a fork in the road. So in this shot, we see where our heroes are coming from. It's probably not the official road. It looks kind of like a woodland path that's, you know, navigable, but not really the road. And the white cloaks are coming down, and they head them off. And in kind of off to the right, we can see where the road is they travel on. But in the next shot, go to the next slide, we see it from the other angle. So this is where everybody stopped, and up the misty distance, that's where Moraine and company came from. Next slide. So Moraine mentions here that they encountered Trollocs to the west, and she points in the wrong direction because she should be pointing behind her, kind of to where she came from. But this is kind of introducing that there are Trollocs to the west, to the White Cloaks, who presumably are on their way south to where the Aes Sedai are that have captured Loghain. And that's kind of what they're motivated with. So the White Cloaks are in the north. They want to go south. Moraine came from the west. She's heading east, maybe.
yeah, they're heading east.
And then the next shot. So Valda decides he wants to split from the party. And Valda is going to take the contingent of questioners south because they have a different purpose. So presumably Valda wants to go and intercept the Aes Sedai that are chasing Loghain. And we can imply from this that Bornhald is then the one who wants to go west to confront the Trollocs at Taren Ferry, which he wouldn't have known about unless he discussed this with Moraine. So, presumably, had they never encountered Moraine and company, they would have continued to go south. Or am I high?
No, you're 100% correct.
Okay.
Also,
So,
yeah,
final slide here, or penultimate slide. So, we've got Bornhold then deciding, all right, I'm going to go west. And he is going up the verdant path in the mist, back the way that Moraine and company had come from. Slide after, I think I found Valda, and he's like, all right, I'm going to go south, which is I'm going to follow the road. And then in the background, we see Moraine and company go up the road the other way. So that's either heading north or maybe it bends and it heads east further. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that direction is east. Who cares? But the key thing is, I wrote it down on this next slide. Um, they rode up to a fork in the road, and they're the ones that gave Bornhold the reason to come their own direction, to go west instead of heading south. So just at face level, like if Lan is scouting ahead and saying, "Hey, there's white cloaks ahead," but they're beyond a fork in the road, so
You could
if
have
you
just
don't know which way they're going, you could have just stayed
waited.
put and maybe avoided them 100% by just not going ahead,
yep,
like at all.
yep.
Or am I wrong on?
Chalk one more up to pure coincidence that these two parties just happen to run into each other. Thank God this world is tiny, right? Like,
And reinforcing this is the fact that the road, the actual beaten path that you see, is not something that Lan and Moraine and company were on. We've got every intention to believe that the White Cloaks would have continued heading along the actual road instead of turning off of it. And really, the only person who gives them a reason to veer off and go west is Moraine.
Well, also, so here's the question: the road
Like
intersection is
this,
like a T intersection, right?
yeah.
So let's just say that the top of the T, sort of, if you kind of visualize this, kind of going left to right as you're looking at an uppercase T, right? So the children of the light, they enter from the top left, presumably to go to the top right. So they're just going to go straight. Moraine
yep,
shows
Yeah.
up and
north to south.
Moraine shows up and she sort of hits into that intersection. And now the White Cloaks split off and they now go down the T and they go to the right. So they go, off to the bottom and off to the right, and Moraine
Yeah.
goes off to the left, right?
And the
So
ones going off to the right are the questioners who want to
yep,
continue heading the way they ostensibly were, south,
yes.
to intercept the Aes Sedai that they know about.
And
And
here's what I was gonna
Bornhald
bring
that
up.
goes west, who's presumably going to Taren Ferry to fight Trollocs,
Fine.
which he wouldn't have known about unless Moraine told him.
Which is fine. Whatever. He's gonna go fight Trollocs. What I'm saying though is that Moraine and the party encounters the Aes Sedai camp by going the way that they go at this intersection, which means that at the start of this encounter, presumably all of the White Cloaks, not just the questioners, were looking for the Aes Sedai, and they were going exactly the wrong direction.
No, they were going south. The White Cloaks were traveling from north to south.
So
The Aes Sedai are traveling.
Moraine and the party leaves this intersection in the direction that the White Cloaks entered the intersection from.
Correct.
Yes. So the fact that Moraine and company then finds the Aes Sedai camp in that direction means that the White Cloaks were going, they were riding away from the actual Aes Sedai camp.
Yes, they're going south towards where they think the Aes Sedai
Yeah.
are, where they last heard
I
about the
just
Aes
I
Sedai.
just think it's
Yep.
worth pointing out that the White Cloaks are exactly wrong.
Yeah, they're so incompetent. They're working on outdated and misguided information. They're going south. The other funniest shit part is, um, they're going south. Our main character's party is going north, right up until it's time for Perrin and Egwene to get captured. At which point they will teleport into the path of Perrin and Egwene,
Yes.
despite the fact that they're going in the complete opposite direction.
And a month of time has passed.
It could go
Yes.
anywhere in a month.
Logistics are for losers.
I hope I added some insight here. This is a quick throwaway thing, but Trolloc design. We probably beat this up, but I was too hammered to remember. But this thing apparently has like 6 horns, and they all point forward into its face. And if you're some type of animal human hybrid, what animal has got 6 horns that point into their face like this?
Certainly the
This
Trolloc design, and we brought this up that there are some beaked Trollocs. There are a couple different ones that they make, but certainly the average Trolloc we see on screen is a Lord of the Ring Urukai that has hair. Is really what we're
and,
shown 90% of the time. So if you want
and
to
these
if you want to
freaking
play into the
horns.
trope, if you want to play into the trope that the Wheel of Time Trollocs are just an absolute ripoff of orcs or Urukai or whatever, they're knocking it out of the park. Because yeah, hair and horns is really all they did.
Yeah,
I hate it so much.
I've seen goats with 4 horns. I've never seen one with 6. But yeah, like just
They don't.
copying from your betters as always, Rafe.
Yeah, but they don't curl into your eyeballs.
Yeah,
Anyway, um, this shot pissed me up. Like here's a major time jump. So I know
yeah.
we time jumped a lot with like we skipped most of Shadow Logoth,
I
right?
think we
Because
beat that to death. Yeah,
we did, and so now we're way past Shadow Logoth. We're into episode 3. But in this shot in particular, the first thing that struck me was just Perrin slouching or bending over that much. Maybe it's wind, but I doubt it. You probably got the direction you can't be that much taller than a Gawain.
well, it's because the actor can't show you an open mouth from this long away of a camera shot, so they had to act it out. They had to make the characterization come to life for the drone
But
footage.
here's the other thing is look at that shadow that he's casting, right?
Very low.
Very low, very much behind him. Um, this is the morning. Like that, if you look at these shots in sequence and the timing of said
Mm-hmm.
episode,
Yeah,
this is basically beginning of his journey, the start of the day. They made it through, they're over the river. Because they spliced this over to Rand and Matt within a shot later. And it's like, all right, the sun has risen and they're off and they're going to go to Tarvalon.
yeah.
If the sun is rising in the east, which I'm pretty sure it does, and if that's at its back, he's walking in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Also, you can confirm it's not windy because the tree behind him isn't moving.
Well, this is a still shot, but sure.
Then he's just slouching. Anyway, there might be wind howling in the sound effects, but pretty anal retentive. All right.
And what are we
This
even
is a
looking
shot.
at there?
This is Breen Spring.
I just don't remember that like cavernous sort of maw that we're looking at there in this shot.
With the thing that I circled.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is Breen Spring. Like so, they walk down the path to the
Yep,
right.
sure. Yep.
There's a in a high resolution version of this shot. You can see the gibbet or the crow cage where they put Gaul,
Yeah, I can
and
see
then the
it.
little bridge going across, and then you have the village down low, and then up above it actually looks like they're hauling stuff out or doing some version of open, well, not cliff face mining of some kind.
I mean, like it's like a giant cave sort of open there. I don't remember seeing that in the actual shot.
I don't know
Probably
if it's
because everything in this
it honestly
freaking show
more
is so
looks like
dark.
a coal kind like a coal outcrop, right? But I don't think they're mining coal. I think they're mining relics from the Age of Legends. At least that's kind of what they show when you go through town. So I have no idea what this is, but I guess it looks like a mine shot from up here. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll see this slide again when we get more in depth about the idiocy of Breen Spring.
So I just had the question. So I was watching this episode on a 4K TV. I had
Nice.
no idea there were buildings directly below your circle. Like
Really?
am I just an idiot that I missed that? Because I legitimately didn't see that. I was looking at this and I was trying to figure out like, okay, so it looks like there's about 4 buildings in Breen Spring.
There's not many, but
Yeah, it looks like
I
there's
think
about
it
12 now, but I didn't see it. And color palette, people. Like
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
maybe. There's a shitload worse with Breen Spring than just the invisible buildings. Like who would build a village here? Because I'm sorry, that lake that you have here, I guarantee you that water level moves way the fuck up and down with the seasons because you're going to get so much runoff off these mountains. You're going to get so much just funneling in here. These kind of mountain lakes, they oscillate quite a lot. This town probably gets flooded quite a bit. Anyways,
Least of their worries in this show.
I think this slide's pretty self-explanatory.
Move on before Trip unmutes herself to yell at Dane for making more comments about the bar.
I don't think she can.
This atrocity. Yeah.
Well, just wait for the next slide.
I love that she bites him. So good.
She tried to kill him, and then once she missed with her stab, and he goes, "Ooh, you actually tried to kill me." She bites his fucking hand.
Yeah. If this
like
shows
some type of Rottweiler. Like what the and then within 12 hours, he's basically saying you'll protect her.
Right. If this show was as gender equal as it thinks it was, he would have fucking decked her right here. Which
Well, they also did a great job of playing into certain tropes and stereotypes about characterization here by making Nynaeve the angry, violent one.
yeah, dude, what is with Hollywood and the angry black woman trope? Is that coming back? Like, are we like I thought as a writer you were supposed to avoid that, but now it
Again,
seems like everybody's back on board with it.
It's like all of the villains were cast the way that they were cast. It literally is like Ragnar can't help himself but be racist. It's like I would literally have never written these characters the way that he did, just like casually stereotyping racism. It's just atrocious. Like seriously, how is it? It has nothing to do with her character in the books. She is the like antithesis of violent. She gets enraged about people.
I wouldn't say she's the
violent.
antithesis of violent.
I think that
she gets angry and she contemplates kind of like.
So she gets angry. She has a temper, but like most of the time her temper is provoked by typically men, but people doing violence.
But she has a switch, right? And she switches the bottoms and paddles the bottoms. Like she's not.
That's not. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. I wouldn't consider that violence, but yeah.
Well, it's not violent like biting down on someone is violent. Like
or trying to stab him, or shanking a man, which she does a little bit later, or killing multiple Trollocs.
Yeah, okay, they ruin Nynaeve, but we'll get to that kind of at the end of this discussion because we've got to go through who gets assassinated the most. But I thought this was telling, and this is just something that we didn't really bring up in the original watch. Was she just tried to kill you, dude. I hate Lan's gloves. Maybe the res on this isn't the best, but these look like the stupidest fucking gloves I've ever seen in my life. Granted, he's probably wearing them because he has a giant bite wound on one of his hands. But these are not riding gloves. These are.
I just want to know why he has like shoulder pads on.
Under his pajamas?
Satisfied with it looking like Legend of the Seeker, and they wanted it to look more like Xena Warrior Princess.
One way to make him look taller is to try and broaden his shoulders because he's 5'8" and weighs 150 pounds.
Is he really only 5'8"?
No, that's what I'm saying. Discussion. It's impossible to verify. I guess my question is:
he's 5'8" on heels.
Anyways, how can you say you hate these gloves when we had the fingerless fur gloves?
I don't really count those as gloves.
Okay.
If they don't have the fingertips, so
everyone in this damn show has fingerless gloves for some damn reason. It's like watching the music video for Thriller.
Except for Lan. Lan doesn't have fingerless gloves, but I don't think they're an improvement. That's how shitty these gloves are. But we can move on from this slide. Right? We did count this one. We did Trip pointed it out. Yep. I just had to hang a lantern on it, I guess, so to speak. But there's an even funnier thing coming up in the next one. Hey! Sex hails. That'll be a new line.
It's as close as them getting to saying sex sells as they're likely to admit publicly.
No, but it's the portmanteau of sex and exhales. Anyway, we used this as a thumbnail. It's again unintentionally hilarious show. Not much more to say. Um, the next slide, it's the shallow graves. We did have a pretty good discussion on the shallow graves.
Yep.
Because I wanted to talk about this.
Oh, you want to go?
I know we've hammered this for a minute.
Yeah.
In fairness,
But
though, we hammered this a lot on how she looked and what her rating was, and I don't think we need to go back and rehash that. But
That
if
was
you've got
just
a
you, Dan.
different point,
I guess
maybe,
like,
maybe I got some consensus. She's not good. Anyways, go ahead, Alex.
are we seriously watching like just some gossip girl bullshit? Like the
Yes.
main points here were of these last few scenes were, you know, Moraine is like muttering her lover's name in her sleep, and then we're about to have awkward like romance drama between two characters. Like the thought of putting these things back to back is just like, guys, don't we have like things to be doing? Like,
It's actually
you
worse
know,
than that
cities to go
because we
to.
also saw the budding romance of Lan and Nynaeve, which is clearly established by her trying to stab him and him not killing her in, sort of the consequence of her attempting to. And we also see Egwene and Perrin, who, their sort of love triangles heating up out in the wilderness. So literally every character we see on screen for this entire episode, other than I guess Child Valda, is trying to bang the person they're with.
Wow,
Just
that is
just wait.
depressing as shit.
Just wait about Child Volda, because I think you just hinted at the arc that he gets to go through in season 2
Oh, Child
with
Valda
Jeffrey Gordon.
definitely wanted Perrin for that scene too. Why else did he have that weird sort of contraption he had Perrin tied over? That had a dual use. That had a dual use. That's all I'm saying. In equestrian
He didn't really torture him.
in equestrian terms, we'd call that a mounting block.
Yeah.
You're here all week, right?
Oh man, and we're gonna get canceled.
That's okay. Okay. The shitty graves that are super shallow. We see that definitely at the start of episode 5. It honestly looks like, I don't know, Lord Matt, not a bloody lord, suggested maybe they buried him standing up based on how this grave looks like.
I think we came out on the side of them just being more really shitty prop work, because like it looks to be long enough maybe for a body. It's just like it's a half a rock sort of deep. It's silly.
And there are all types of issues of
rocks. I don't know why. Like there's no rocks anywhere else, but like they got a couple armfuls of rocks.
They didn't have a shovel. They didn't have a pickaxe. They found the
look
rocks. They either built a cairn, grave, or whatever. Maybe they dug down into the water table. Who the hell knows? But here's another thing. Where did they bury him? Based on that brazier kind of on the left, I'd say they buried him like 5 feet from where he was hanging in the cage.
Yes.
So
yeah.
If anybody's
essentially in the road.
Yeah. If anyone's pissed off that they took down their creepy decoration and decided, hey, you know what? We weren't done desecrating this corpse. Let's put him back in the cage. They know where to go because they buried him 5 fucking feet from the crow cage. What's wrong with these people?
Well, they definitely hit the water table if they're going down 6 feet. Oh my god.
All right, this is another good insight from not our Lord Matt. But let's just note here, at least in this shot, the hinges, the door swings out, so the hinges are on the far side of the door and they're on the right. So when you want to break down a door that swings out, which is convenient because if the door swung in, it would be kind of harder to break it down because you'd be taking on the whole frame. But at least with this one, you'd want to break down the door and you would bang yourself against the non-hinge side. So let's go to the next slide.
Just like brushing over this happening Me Too moment.
We should. Rand is maybe putting his shoulder right in the middle, and he's got his hand weight on the right side. But why isn't he hitting kind of where the door opens?
Because literally everybody in this show has one combined brain cell, and I forget who had it during
Was it?
this episode.
Well, it does at least explain why the door doesn't just like swing open like you'd expect if they break the latch, which is always the weakest part of a door. So the fact that it like blows
even
off
though
the
it's made of
hinges-
ironwood, Pips.
Yeah.
Even though it's made of ironwood.
Well, the frame. She didn't say the frame was made of ironwood, which is classic blunder. Only slightly more famous. Never start a land war in Asia. But the fact that he like knocks the entire door off sort of matches with him being the dumbest person who's ever tried to attack a breach. But you know,
it's not how doors work. Anyway, we
every door leads to Tarvalin.
It probably does. All right, we're making good time through this, I hope. This was just, that was a fantastic Benny Hill video you did. I'm somewhat saddened you didn't splice it into the actual rewatch, but
I put a little tag there so it pops up and you can click it.
oh, okay, great.
Hey, look at you.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love how they get lost in a town that has 6 streets. And that's not even like 6 streets and 6 avenues. I mean, there's 3 streets and 2 avenues. Like,
I love how they're
Are there
actually
more than 6 buildings?
I love how like nobody in this village they see someone running down the street with a sword and nobody is like, I don't know, there's no equivalent of like a sheriff sort of figure. like what is the law and order situation in this town?
Non-existent, but
Clearly.
the only thing that after looking at the shot of Breen Spring from farther away, and maybe that's the next shot here. So they ran for 30 seconds around, and Matt just came from the only way out of town, right? Matt just came from where they buried Gaul, which is across this bridge and a little bit of, so he knows there's one way in or out, and they don't run for it. So maybe the whole lollipop view of the roads that is the only way to kind of explain how Dana cuts them off makes some sense. But then what doesn't make sense is how they ran like idiots for 30 seconds through the town and decided not to head for the exit.
I think we were right that it's all one circular road. It's Dane, you might have some expertise on this. You know the South Park gag about Canada only having one road? I know you're Canadian.
We do. Okay, it's not a gag. We actually do only have one road. And technically speaking, if you want to get from east to west, west to east, it's a better road to cut down and go through Minnesota than it is. Like, seriously, the road from Manitoba through to Ontario in that stretch, there is one road. It's like a lane wide, and it's dilapidated and shitty, and it's built on the Canadian Shield, and it washes out from time to time. There is one road that goes across Canada. That's it. And it's probably about as good as the road that's in the bubble here. Canada sucks.
I'm just watching this. Could you get like if you went all the way to the right and then went up, kind of up those 2 switchbacks, could you get up to the mining road? I don't even think the lollipop makes sense.
Well, the lollipop, we'd have to zoom in on all those buildings, because I'm presuming in that kind of there's a square area where all the buildings are.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of that one road that leads out to the bridge, and then there's a switchback kind of going back up. But I don't even know if that goes to the mines or. This is just, it's such a shitty design town village. Why would you even go here? Like,
no. Dane, you've said it before.
Why is this along their way?
They paid a couple of checks to make this shot. Just check computer engineers.
They were probably Indian.
I don't know. I watched RRR. It's better.
But not by much. I don't know what you guys. I can't stand dance music videos in the middle of a movie. But anyway, this is just a warning here that quite obviously there's a reason why this puddle is here. And probably why they established a shot, and it's so
Oh
that you
yeah,
can bleed out into it, and you can get that cool fade thing.
yeah.
So all I'm saying is, let's do a warning. I don't think it shows up in the rest of season 2. I could be wrong about this,
Rest of season
but
one.
yeah, sorry, season 1. Let's keep an eye out for death puddles going forward, okay, guys? Because I think they're probably quite enamored with what they did here,
All right.
and
So
it wouldn't surprise me
how
that
many watches do we have? We have horse watch. We have death puddle watch.
Hoof
Um,
Bang Watch.
hoof bang watch.
Is that hoof bang? I don't know if we need to watch for that,
Yeah,
but
they put it pretty much in your face every time it's relevant.
we look at gloves now. So are we on glove watch? Fingerless gloves, longer
There's
gloves.
we have an ongoing watch for Perrin with his mouth closed. That one's pretty
Oh yeah,
tricky.
yeah, yeah.
Not a whole lot of those.
Slouch watch too
We're
with
at
Baron.
2.
We've got
Uh,
2 incidences with his mouth closed.
Yep.
Fuck off. Okay, maybe
We're
that's possible.
I do think
Uh,
we called this out in the rewatch. I think they are super impressed with themselves with how well this went.
Okay, so Dane, if you watched RRR, then you'll know what I'm talking about.
to
The
to a
transition
point.
where he cries blood, like the blood trickles down his face and into his eye. Like that is the
But
level of shit that we're talking about here.
so I've watched up to when they do the attack on the governor's compound.
Yeah, so when Beam is hanging from the balcony
Yep.
and Rom grabs him.
Okay, yeah, that's like at that's where I paused when I. So my problem with RRR is I need to be a certain level of drunk in order to watch it without kind of stepping up and walking away from it. But that level of drunk is so close to passing out that I really can only watch the show for like 20 minutes at a time. It's a very fine balancing act. It's kind of like a tightrope act, to be quite honest.
What I will say though is that RRR was intentionally doing the things that they did. I think this show.
You just don't know Bollywood, man. They were intentionally doing what they did, but they thought it was good rather than campy.
But my point is that their audience likes what they like. So like the things that they did that were campy were intentionally done to be campy. Just the audience. That's what they
Well,
want, right?
here's the thing.
I think that these people making this
Rajanor's audience likes what they like, and they like the representation. They like the incoherent storylines. They like the subversion. They like the fucking nose rings. He's given
sure
them what they
they
want.
like those
But
things, but they also like a lot of the things that we're criticizing are unintentional. Like it's unintentionally bad. Like they're just incompetent, right? Whereas the RRR production company made like they decided to have a scene where a dude does squats with another dude on his back and there's a musical accompaniment, right? Like that was intentional. There's no way around that. The whole like hey, Perrin's wife's earrings switched from one ear to the other between shots and back and forth. No, that's just incompetency.
I'll go so far as to say that in RRR, there are not anywhere near the number of technical errors that you see in this show. Like, say what you will about it being an Indian movie, um,
yeah,
that
the Indians know their movies a lot better than the Czechs do. But let's not get into that. I'm
uh,
sorry.
People who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Czechs.
That's right. Okay. Um, so that slideshow there was basically all that I could find that we didn't already beat up with all of our great guests. And let's do a quick shout out to the 6 of them that we had. So Ozimoto was our first guest reviewer that came along. Then we had Aludra, and we tried to behave ourselves, at least for those 2 parts. We got Alex's sister Hannah to join us. Then we got Foy. After Foy, we got our Lord Matt. And finally, our 6th reviewer of what we're covering here, we got everyone's favorite. We got Trip back for 2 episodes that are doing really well, at least as far as our view counts go. Those are great episodes. So glad she came back for that.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who
But
helped.
exactly, we couldn't have done it without all of them. They touched on kind of great points, pointing out things that we wouldn't have seen without them. But also that's kind of why we're doing this. We want to involve the wider community, point things out. The reason why we're not involving anyone else kind of on this one is you've seen this all already. We didn't miss a whole lot, and this, quite frankly, isn't that entertaining. I think maybe this whole rewatch recap will suck, but
Eh, it's. I
I've been
think.
drinking.
I think. I don't know. I'm having a good time, whether or not other
All
people
right.
like listening to us ramble. You've been paying attention to the chat a little bit here. We got a few more people in. Have any of them called out some stuff that they think we missed going through this?
No, it's mostly been Ozzy and Trip in the chat, so I don't know if the other joiners have figured out how to type. I hope they can one day. Maybe that will provoke some comments.
All right.
We'll see. I guess with that, everybody in the chat, thanks for coming out. Thanks for weighing in. We did read a lot of the comments, and yeah, hope you guys tune in for the next one where we'll dive into the King of Gildan and Logain, all that nonsense.
And just to throw out, thank you for everybody participating on either YouTube or the Discord. It's been great. The conversations, both online, offline, in person, if you've been one of the guest rewatchers, has been really good. I know that we've all had a blast doing this, and I think we're up to almost 200 subs on the channel. So you guys, your support and coming out and subbing, viewing, commenting, all that other stuff is awesome, and we definitely don't take that for granted in terms of you guys supporting us with the channel. I mean, we're doing this because we enjoy doing it, and we think you guys enjoy it too. So thanks for all the support.
Walk in the light, everyone.